Assalamualaikum, welcome back to Coding with T. Today we're going to learn how to create scrollable banners in the Flutter. So without wasting time, let's quickly have a look what we're going to create. Okay, our application is running and in here you can see we have already defined the header part. Header part of this home screen is completed. Now we're going to start officially this body part of this home screen. The first thing of the body part is this banner which we're going to design today. So we are going to break down today's tutorial into three major parts. So the first thing of this breakdown is we are going to need the image which will have some radius at the top. You can see the border radius, maybe the border also, and we need to add radius to the image which is using the ClipRRect widget we are going to learn in few minutes. And after that we are going to learn how to create the carousel slider using which we are going to slide these images. And after that we have the bottom navigation dot slider. You can see at the bottom when we are going to slide this image or we're going to slide this carousel, we're going to create the custom because in the carousel we don't have anything like bottom navigation. So make sure to watch the video till end. So without wasting time, let's get started. We are creating Flutter e-commerce application and we're about to start the banner tutorial of the section 3. We have already completed the section 1 and section 2. If you are new, you can watch the previous videos or you can get the complete playlist link from the description or from the right top corner. So without wasting time, let's get started with today's tutorial. Studio and we are inside our home.dart, and at the top you can see we have completed our header part which we have learned in previous tutorial, and also I have mentioned with the section of the videos. And in the previous tutorial typically we learn how to create a search bar and the categories. So once the header part is completed, we are officially going to start the body part. So this header means that we are going to not use the blue part as a background, but we're going to use the white part or the rest of the part of the body. So before directly start coding, the prerequisites or to add the assets or the dependencies, you first have to go to the assets folder. Inside, go to the images, and in the banners, you can see we have three banners. So we're going to use these banners and I have already defined in the image strings. We just have to go to the lib folder, utils constants, and in the image strings.dart, we have created a class. And now whenever we want to use these images, we just have to call timages.promo banner 1, 2, or 3, and it is going to give us this path of the image because they are static, so we don't have to create instance of this class. So once image is declared, let's go to pubspec.yaml file. And in the local assets of this pubspec.yaml file, we have to define right inside this Flutter assets. We have to define the banners also. Make sure to add forward slash, include all the images inside this folder. And also the dependency that we're going to use is the carousel slider. Let's open the browser and you can see this one we are going to use, the carousel slider. Make sure to the latest one, and in the utility packages we are going to paste it. Click on pubget. Once done, head back to the home.dart, and in here we are going to first of all design the image, which is the first thing that we need to design. So to design the image, because image can have a border radius, border itself, and definitely border shadow, maybe the background color or bunch of other things. So why not use the container property to do all the stuff. So inside this container, because we want to add a border radius, so use the decoration property, box decoration, border radius dot circular, and we're going to use the t sizes dot medium. Let me remove the constant from the top, add constant to the header, also to this box decoration. It's a radius, so we have to use the border radius instead. So border radius dot circular. And then as a child of this container, we want to add not inside the box decoration. Control Alt L. Inside this container, we want to use as a child, we want to add the image property. So as an image, because now we are fetching the assets from the local directly, so we have to use the asset as an image, use the asset image, and as a path of the asset image, we are going to use the images dot promo banner. So let me just show you one more time. You can see we just have to call images dot promo banner. It is going to return the path of the image. So it's over here at a constant. Let's run the application. Okay, so our application is running. Let's head to the login screen. Click on sign in, and you can see it's unable to load the banner. Asset not found. The issue is that I have added products over here. So let's go to the image, right click, copy path reference, copy the path from the content root and paste it over here. So basically I just have to replace this banners. Let me just rerun it. And you can see we have our image. Currently it's taking the complete width. Let's head back to home instead of this container, because this container is going to contain the image itself. So let me just wrap it with the padding the equal size throughout of the screen. So that's why we are going to use this padding as a default space. Let's save it. And now you can see padding has been applied. Also the image with a border radius, because the image itself or the design of the image is itself has some border radius. If I am going to change this image to the another image which don't have already defined the border radius, you can see the image we have applied the border radius to this container, but the image don't have any effect of that border radius. To apply the radius on this image, we have to wrap it using Alt Enter. On the top of this image, wrap with the widget, and the widget name is ClipRRect. It has a property of border radius. So this border radius should be the same as the border radius of the container, because in case you are going to add border, maybe shadow, maybe the background color, so it will not look good. So let's save it. And now you can see the border radius has been applied using this clip or rect. Control Alt L to align the code, and image is created. Now we want to make sure that this image can be reused on the widgets or on the products that we are going to create in upcoming video. So we're going to right click on this container, go to refactor, extract Flutter widget. I'm going to name it T rounded image refactor, a constant. But in this case, we cannot reuse this container or this rounded image as we want, because these are the fixed things. And before doing anything else in the main widget of the image, we have a property which is a fit property, because in most cases you might find the images which are not fit as you want. So you can use this fit property using this box fit dot contain. I'm going to use a contain. You can see value, cover, contain, fill, and bunch of other options. So the one I'm going to use is the contain. So let me first add all the variables that we might require while creating the rounded image. Keeping all that in mind, let me create the variables. Okay, here I have created a bunch of the variables. The first one is the width and height, then image URL itself, apply image radius, where we are using this widget. If we want to apply the radius, it should be true. If we don't want to apply the radius, we will make this clip our right border radius to be none, or maybe false, or maybe 0. Then we have the border. We can add a background color. Fit property is again we have just added using contain. Padding is network image, and also the on press is network image is the one that if we are going to use this widget as a network image. So if we are going to pass the network image URL to this surrounded image as an image URL, so we are going to make this image network image to true, else we will make it false. And also the on press is definitely in some cases, not in all, we might have the case in which we are going to click on that image, so some event should be triggered. So we just have to wrap it with a gesture detector, and let me add all these values down below over here. Okay, I've added or assigned all the values in the gesture detector on tab. This on press is going to be passed. It's nullable. So if we have the on press event in here, it will be triggered. Otherwise, it's not. We have a width, height, padding inside the same container we created. Then is a decoration, box decoration. I have added a border as well, and also background color or the color property. But you see the border radius is not changed. So let me also change this border radius. So replace that border radius with this one, because the radius should be same on both clip or rect and also for the decoration property. And then inside this clip or rect, if apply image radius boolean is going to be true, we will apply the radius whatever passed, and otherwise we are going to use the border radius dot 0. And inside this image fit property over here, and also the boolean is network image, we're going to use the network image and pass the URL. If it's not, we are going to use the asset image and pass the URL. You will face the error over here if you are not going to use this as image provider with the asset image. I don't know why, but currently it's the old one and it's not being updated by the Flutter. So let's get the default values inside the constructor. So border is nullable, padding on press is nullable, width and height. I just defined some values, but if you don't want to define it, it's not mandatory. You just have to add the required sign. So The only thing required is the image URL. So this is the best widget which only requires you to pass one value and have lot of optional values. So you see we have these all values are optional except this image URL. So the default values has been applied and they are already defined over here. So default image will be created. So border radius was missing, border radius created. Okay, at the top you can see we have to provide the required argument which is image URL. So we have that image URL promo banner 4 which don't have any radius in the image. Why this error required the border radius as well? Let me add the border radius. Instead of providing over here as a required attribute, let's remove the required and pass the radius as t size dot medium, and now we don't have to pass the border radius as well. Error is gone. Let's save the code. And you see all the details have been applied, but the width and height is 115 to 158. So let's remove this width and height. Let's save the code and you can see we are back with the design. You cannot see the border radius because we have apply image radius by default as false. If we're going to make it by default as true, you can see the radius has been applied. Now, in case if you don't want to apply the radius, we have to define apply image radius to false over here. So once created, let's extract this widget to the common widgets. I've created images folder and inside you can see I have created a new file which is pre-rounded image dot and inside we have the class control alt L to align and head back to the home dot. Hover over this rounded image, import this library and the error is gone. Okay, so the image is created. Now we have to make sure that we can use the carousel slider to have 2 to 3 images or depending upon how many images we want. Okay, so for now, let's just cut it from here. We are going to use the carousel slider, and inside the carousel slider, we have the required item, which is the items or the list of items. So as a list, we can easily paste our custom widget. So let's again remove this constant. So let's add the options here. We have to use the carousel options property. And inside we can play with this view fraction point. If we're going to give it 0.8, it is going to show the enlarged images. And because I don't want to do that, but let me just show you. Let's save the code. You see we have a carousel with the viewport is basically 0.8. Then we have another image. This is being treated as the unlimited scroll. So let's control D to duplicate it 3 times. So let's change the image, save it, and you can see we have 3 sliders over here. We can see the background because we don't want 0.8, we want the complete view fraction. Let's save the code, and you can see we have our complete slider. Add a constant, so carousel slider is also created. Add comma over here. Now next thing is to add, whenever we are going to scroll this carousel slider, we also want the bottom dots to be scrolled. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to wrap this carousel slider with a column widget because we want to create right below this carousel slider a little space. Okay, because we want to create a custom circular shapes. So for the first shape, let's try to use our own previously created circular container. The circular container, when you hover over it, this is the circular container we created in our previous tutorial or the second tutorial of this section. So now inside this, we can easily pass the width. Let's say it's a 20 cross 20. Let's give it some background color. And you can see we have a nice little dot with a 20 cross 20 right in the center because column by default have a center property for all the elements. Now to have multiple containers in a same row, we have to wrap this widget with a row widget. And now we can easily replicate this 2 to 3 times or as many times we want. Let's say 3 times. Let's save it. And you can see because we are using the row property, so that's why we put back to the left side because row has a complete length and we have 3 dots. So to avoid this overriding again and again, we can simply use the for property over here, which is a for loop, a very basic for loop. A constant control alt L. And you can see we have a simple one for loop, I is equal to 0 less than 3. So we want to loop it 3 times, and each time we want the same navigational dot. When we are going to save this, still it's the same. We're going to create a margin in the circular container because we have the padding which is in the double property. In a circular container we want the same padding, so that's why I have used edge insets dot all to keep everything in the center. But for the margin, we cannot use the edge insets dot all. So hover over it, we need to create edge insets variable instead of this double for the margin. Edge insets, it will be nullable property. So assign the margin to this margin, and we are not going to define anything by default. So margin is created. Now head towards here, create a margin, because we only want to assign little space on the right side of each navigational dot. So margin will be only from the right side. Let's give it 10. Let's save it. We have to hot reload, and you can see a space has been assigned or applied. The last thing to change its height to 4. Let's save it. And you can see we have the design we want for the bottom navigational dots. Now we want to make them swing along with, or make them show the selected when we are moving these banners. For that, let's close this one, close the constraints, go to features, shop, and inside the controllers we are going to create the home controller. So you created a simple home controller. Simple home controller extends a GetX controller, and if you don't know about anything about the GetX, you don't have to be worried. So create a simple variable which is going to point to your index, which is 0, 1, 2, or 3. So currently it's pointing to the first index, which is a 0 index. Dot obs means that make this variable or this integer variable. You see this 0 is an integer. So basically this is an integer variable, simple. So this OBS is going to make this integer variable observable. So now this variable can be observed using the GetX by the GetX observer. So this means that whenever there is change inside this variable, observer is going to update the state of the UI wherever that observer has been created. So far we created a variable and a function in which an index will be passed, or the current index will be passed, let's say using the swipe. Now the index is 2, so the 2 index will be passed, and that index is simply going to be assigned using the value property. When you hover over this value, you see it's a set type of integer. So this carousel current index is a rx type of integer. So when we are going to use this dot value, it means that we can easily assign this integer to this one. So whenever we are going to update the indicator, this value will be assigned. Now head back to the home controller, because we always want to keep our design look minimal. So first of all, I am going to extract this column as a whole, refactor extract flutter widget, name it T promo slider, and keep our main home.dart as clean as possible, because this slider is only related to the home.dart. So let me extract it. Go to screens in the home.dart, in the widgets, right click, create a new file. I'm going to name it promo slider.dart, import material.dart, paste your file, add required imports, head back to the home.dart, import this promo slider new file, add a constant at the top, and head back over here. Now inside we need to call our home controller. To call the home controller, simply use controller is equal to, we're going to use the get.put method. But if you already defined the controller in the bindings, which I will create a separate video, you don't have to do this. But nothing to worry, go for the get.put and call this home controller. That's it. It's just creating a new instance of this home controller class. So we will use this controller and using this carousel slider, because we want to update the state of that indicator. So first of all, we need to know where this state is going to be updated. So whenever this slider is going to slide, we have a method inside the carousel which is on page change. It is going to return us an index. When you hover over this, integer is an index of this current page, and also carousel page change reason. So we don't need a reason, so add underscore. And as a function, we are going to call the function we created, controller dot update page indicator. and we can correctly pass the index. Now, whenever the page is going to be changed, it is going to give us a new index to this function, and this function is going to assign the new index to this observer, this observable variable, sorry, not an observer itself. So let me go to this row variable and right click, wrap it with another widget. This time we are going to use the observer itself, which is going to observe the change of the observable. Whenever there is change in that observable variable, it is going to update the state just like a stateful widget. So it has to be a function. So in here, how we are going to decide which indicator is selected, Control Alt L to align. Inside this T circular container, head towards this background color. Instead of giving this color as a green, we're going to call the controller.carousel slider indicator dot value. If the value is equal to I, means if current index is 0 and also the selected current index is also 0, this means that it is selected. Then we are going to assign, remove the constant, Control Alt L to align the code, and you see in the background color, if the controller current selected index is equal to the value of this for, that specific indicator background color will be the primary, otherwise all other will be the gray color. So let's save it. And you can see the first one is the primary color and the rest of two are in the gray color. And I'm going to change it. You can see the navigational position is also being changed. And also we want to make the navigational dots in the center. So wrap this OBX with a center widget. Let's save it. And it's not being applied. The reason is that row is currently taking the full space. So we have to use the main exercise dot minimum. Let's save the code, and you can see we are perfectly in the center. And one more thing, that if you also want to make this promo slider reusable a bit more times, you just have to create a list of strings over here at the top, same like this one. So promo slider, whenever we are going to use this promo slider, we can pass any type of banners and it is going to design those banners for us. Instead of hard coding everything, we can simply use banners.map, and we are going to map the value which is e. E is a simple, you can call it URL. Replace this t images banner with a URL property which is a string itself. Remove this constant, and also make sure to add dot to list at the end. And also for the navigational dots, because currently we have a fixed navigational dots, we will use the banners dot length property. We're going to add loops for this custom container, and that's it. Now we can easily pass the list of strings right from the home.dart where we have called our promo slider. So as a banners list, let's say we're going to pass the t images promo banner dot 1, 2, and 3. You can pass any much as you want. Now let's save it. And you see still it's working pretty fine. We can easily, if we want to duplicate this promo slider, we can easily copy this one, pass the desired images inside it, and the banner will be created. We don't have to do anything else. So that's it for today's tutorial. I hope you learned something new. If you have any question, you can ask me down below in the comments, and if you have any confusion, you can also ask me down below in the comments. So that's it for today's tutorial. Thank you for watching. Take care. Allah Hafiz.